These are four brothers from Vienna who turned a father's abandoned hobby into one of the most unlikely darting dynasties in Europe, and three of them reached the professional stage. This is the story of the Rodriguez family, a Filipino household in Austria that produced 2 World Cup of Darts finalists, a junior world champion, and a giant killer who once knocked out Dave Chisnall on the European tour. Let me introduce them properly, because the names sit close enough together to trip you up. The oldest is Roxy-James, born in November of 1991, who throws under the nickname The Chainsaw. Next comes Rowby-John, born in March of 1994, known across the circuit as Little John. Rusty Jake arrived on Christmas Eve in the year 2000, and he competes as RJR3. The youngest, Ridgy Jorg, was born somewhere around 2005 or 2006. 4 brothers, all of whom picked up a dart at some point, and 3 of whom turned professional. Their mother, by every account, remains the only person in the entire family who never threw one. To understand how a family named Rodriguez ends up carrying the Austrian flag at the World Cup of Darts, you have to start with the parents, who emigrated from the Philippines to Vienna around 1989. The father was a strong darts player in his own right, and by Rowby-John's account, he gave the game up to raise his children. The boys took it up partly to honour that sacrifice, which meant darts in this house was never a pastime the kids stumbled into by accident. It was inherited. It became the thing their father surrendered so they could exist, and then the thing they picked up to give something back to him. Rowby-John likes to tell people he threw his first dart at around 1 year old, and you can file that under family folklore rather than record book, but the point holds. This was a household organised around a dartboard. Rusty Jake, the youngest of the 3 professionals, reportedly started playing at age 3, simply chasing the 2 older brothers who were already good. When your earliest memory is trying to keep pace with siblings ahead of you, you tend to get good in a hurry. The first real breakthrough belonged to Rowby-John. Back in 2010, at just 16 years old, he captured the Austrian National Championship, dismantling Franz Fahler 5-0 in the final. By January of 2014, he had earned his first PDC Tour card through Q School, finishing 9th on the Q School Order of Merit, and that same year he reached the final of the PDC World Youth Championship before losing 6-4 to Keegan Brown. His World Cup debut for Austria came in 2014 as well. He laid out his ambition plainly that year, and his words were these: "I by all means intend to get professional and really only live from playing darts. I would like to reach my goal when I am 25. Darts was meant to be the whole life, never the side hustle." His World Championship debut arrived in January of 2015, and it was a brutal welcome, a 3-0 defeat to Raymond van Barneveld, one of the greatest ever to throw. Rowby-John kept showing up. Regardless, 7 appearances at the PDC World Championship followed across his career, spanning 2015, 2016, 2017, 2019, 2020, 2022, and 2023. His career high average climbed to 109.25 with a televised peak of 108.66, and on the secondary circuits he became a genuine winner, a multiple-time champion on both the Challenge Tour and the Development Tour, credited by one source with 9 such titles in all. While Rowby-John established himself, the oldest brother produced the single most spectacular result the family had managed to that point. The year was 2014, the venue the European Darts Trophy in Leipzig, and the Chainsaw went on a run nobody saw coming. Thomas Saylor fell 6-2, and this is where it got interesting because Roxy-James then beat Dave Chisnall 6-4, a genuine upset over a world-class thrower. The run carried him all the way to the last 16 before Michael Smith, a future world champion, shut it down 6-1. £2,000 was the prize for that performance, and it stands as the biggest documented payday of his career. Here is the detail about Roxy-James that most people miss. Rowby-John has said his oldest brother was actually the best player of the 3 of them, not the most successful, but the best. Despite that, Roxy-James never held a PDC Tour card. He had reached the final of the 2013 Austrian Open and the semi-finals of the 2015 World Youth Championship, yet the full-time professional breakthrough never came, and he failed Q School in 2016 with just 4 points. Talent and results don't always travel together in this sport, and Roxy-James is the family's quiet proof of exactly that. All of which sets up the moment that best captures why this family became a story at all. In June of 2017, all 3 older brothers, Roxy-James, Rowby-John and Rusty Jake, qualified for the same PDC European Tour event, the Austrian Darts Open. Rodriguez trio, we in Austrian places, ran the PDC headline, while the Austrian newspaper Courier called them the Dear Rodriguez Darts Family. 3 brothers, 1 tournament, 1 home crowd. That same event marked the European Tour debut of the youngest of the 3, Rusty-Jake, who would go on to carry the family name furthest into the modern era. Rusty-Jake had been a prodigy from the very start, competing internationally for Austria at youth level from 2013. Later in 2017, he claimed the inaugural JDC World Championship, becoming the first player ever to lift that junior title. For a stretch, he even held the record as the youngest winner of a WDF men's title, a mark that would eventually fall to a name every darts fan now knows, Luke Littler, in 2021. That year belonged to Rusty-Jake too. 5 development tour titles in a single season, 5 of them, plus the top spot on the European Development Tour Order of Merit, earned him a 2-year tour card and the Unicorn Young Player of the Year award for 2021. His ceiling as a scorer is genuinely elite, with a highest career average sitting at 114.15. The World Championship debut came over the new year into 2022, and it delivered a match that still stings, 2-0 ahead of Chris Dobie, sitting in the second round of the Worlds. With a real chance in front of him, Rusty-Jake watched it slip away and lost 3-2. A 2-0 lead surrendered is the kind of result that teaches a young player the hard way how thin the margins really are. Now we reach the family's defining achievement, and it is a shared one. The World Cup of Darts pairs 2 players per country, and for a decade Austria's 2 were Rowby-John Rodriguez and Mensur Suljovic, the nation's longtime number 1 and one of only 2 players to feature at every single staging of the event. On the 12th of September in 2021, that pairing reached the World Cup final. Austria, a country with no real darting pedigree, stood in a world final, and even though they lost 3-1 to Scotland, they were there. What nobody expected was that they would do it all over again. In 2024, the pairing reached a second World Cup final, this time facing England, the number 1 and number 3 players on the planet, Luke Humphries and Michael Smith. Austria lost 10-6. Rowby-John refused to hide what the defeat cost him, and his words afterward were these: "I was crying for a long time after the final. In the venue, in the hotel room, my daughter cried too, saying, 'Daddy, the guys in the white shirts took the trophy, and that made me so emotional.' On the players who beat him, he stayed just as honest, putting it this way: number 1 and number 3 in the world, and they just smashed it. You can see why those 2 are world champions, and they have a winner's mentality. I still have to learn that." That last line, "I still have to learn that," turns out to be the hinge of this whole story, because the back half of it runs harder. Alongside the highs came real setbacks, and we are not going to pretend otherwise. In December of 2023, at the World Championship, Rusty-Jake fell 2 sets behind Cameron Menzies and threw his darts down in frustration, with one of them dropping off the stage near the crowd. Tempers flare ran the Sky Sports headline, and Menzies closed it out 3-0. This was a young player coming apart on the biggest stage of all, and everyone watched it happen. His tour card slipped away after the 2023 season, and to his credit, he fought back. Heading into the 2024 Q School, he sounded determined, telling people, "I've been playing the best darts of my last 4 or 5 years now. I'm still missing doubles to get further and further, but it's going better and better. Hopefully I can make it to the World Championship. That's my goal." That fight paid off when he reclaimed his tour card at Q School in January of 2025, finishing 6th on the European Q School Order of Merit. With Rowby-John having lost his own card after 2024, the family's World Cup spot passed straight from one brother to the next, and Rusty-Jake partnered Suljovic in 2025. The lowest point came next. In September of 2025, the Darts Regulation Authority confirmed that Rusty-Jake had failed a drugs test at Players' Championship 24, with the sample taken on the 25th of August. He appeared before the DRA Disciplinary Committee on the 10th of October and admitted the breach. Their statement read, "Rusty-Jake Rodriguez appeared before the DRA Disciplinary Committee on 10th October 2025 as a result of him failing a drugs test at Players' Championship 24. He admitted the breach." A 1-month ban followed for the out-of-competition ingestion of a non-performance enhancing substance, with a further 2-month ban left hanging over him should he fail to engage with an approved treatment program. By around the 17th of October, the suspension was lifted. He has described it publicly as unintentional, a misunderstanding, and the context around it tells its own quiet story because that season he had already suffered first-round exits in 18 of his 24 Players' Championship appearances. This was a player struggling, not a player cheating to win. So where does the family stand now, in the middle of 2026? The honest answer is a difficult place. Rusty Jake remains an active tour card holder and Austria's World Cup partner, though he and Suljovic went out at the group stage again in June of 2026. His world ranking seats around 129th, with somewhere between £8,000 and £10,000 on the order of merit depending on which source you check, and his rolling average has dropped to roughly 83, a long way down from that 114 ceiling. Rowby-John no longer holds a tour card at all, grinding instead on the Challenge Tour and in WDF events, though he did hit a 9-darter on the Development Tour in January of 2025, and in November he came within a single match of qualifying for the Lakeside World Championship before losing 6-3. Roxy-James carries the description of former professional these days. As for the youngest, Rowby-John, the one the PDC once said was expected to follow the trio onto the circuit, there exists no professional record of him at all. So what do you make of the Rodriguez brothers? You could tell this as a story of decline, and the rankings would back you up, but I don't think that is the real story. The real story is that a Filipino family who arrived in Vienna at the end of the 1980s, whose father gave up the game he loved so his kids could have a life, sent 3 sons onto the professional dart circuit, pushed Austria into 2 World Cup finals against the best players alive, and produced a junior world champion along the way. Rowby-John once set himself the goal of living entirely from darts by the age of 25, and he got there. The trophy never came, the toughest chapters are recent, yet the family pulled off something almost nobody manages, turning an inherited hobby in a country with no darting tradition into a name the PDC, the crowds and the cameras all came to recognize. That is the Rodriguez brothers, Austria's darts family.